back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I am here today to do a recap or a wrap up, shall we say, of the One Readathon to Rule Them All, which was a 2-week long readathon. It was hosted by a bunch of lovely people who I'll link down below, and there were lots of fun challenges and ideas to get involved. Apologies if you can hear like loud noises in the background. Hopefully you can't, but we've got builders next door and they have been loud every day of the week recently, so I'm just filming whilst they're here because I've got no time otherwise. Anyway, with that said, I really enjoyed this readathon. I thought it was great fun. I didn't have as much time as I wanted to read for it. I think I had a couple days that I was on holiday, so I actually got a decent amount read on those. But most of the time I was working and then I had stuff after work, so it was just tiny snippets of reading here and there. But with that being said, I read an awful lot and I'm really happy with everything I read, and I'm really enjoying the ones that I haven't quite finished yet. So it was a very positive reading experience. So I'm just going to run through everything I read, how much I read, what challenges I completed, things like that. So let's get started. So first of all, I'll tell you that I managed to completely finish 4 books, although I did actually start 7, so 3 of them I'm still sort of ongoing with. And I also think that I managed to complete all of the challenges with the ones I've read or that I'm reading at the moment and will finish up soon. So I'm really happy with that. I managed to read a total of, at the moment, where I am currently, 2,569 pages, so I'm really happy about that. That means I did tick off my over 1,000 pages during the readathon challenge, so that's really great. So yeah, let me tell you what I ended up reading. First thing was The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. I used this for the challenge of an author who is a person of colour and also for the non-Western setting, and I definitely enjoyed bits of this. The aspects of the magic and the world were really interesting. I did a buddy read of this book with Chris and James, so I'll link them below, and we had a really interesting time discussing it. It certainly is a book that has some different ideas. It is inspired by sort of non-Western setting, so it has a lot of Egyptian influence, and it's set in a world where people can invade one another's dreams and kind of steal one's personality and send them into death. It's all to do with dream magic. It's definitely got some really cool magical aspects and very interesting world building. But personally, I didn't find that this book really wowed me in the way I wanted it to. I found that I was kind of a little bit left cold with this one because some of the characters just weren't as developed as I wanted them to be, and some of the people in the world just didn't really feel that genuine, and the world itself felt a little bit minimal. So it was a good read, I enjoyed it. I'd probably give it a 2.5 out of 5. It was just middle of the road fun, but nothing special for me. I don't know if I'll carry on with the second one, so if you have read the second in the series, do let me know whether you think it's worth continuing with. I liked it, but it just didn't wow me. So anyway, it did manage to tick off some challenges, so that's great. And I do still really enjoy N.K. Jemisin's later stuff, so possibly I'll just have to read what she brings out from now on rather than go back to her backlist, which for me so far has been a bit of a miss so far, yeah. Anyway, that's book 1. The next book that I finished was Fudoki by Kij Johnson. I believe I gave this a 2 stars. It's okay, maybe a 2.5 again actually. It was a similar feeling where this one's very character focused. We're focusing on a princess and we're also focusing on a story that she is telling us about a cat woman, and it's set in Japan, and the princess is a lot older than most of the typical fantasy characters. I believe she's in her 70s, as she mentions at one point, and so she is sort of recounting the tale of her life and also telling us about this cat woman who she met or she's imagining. It's never quite clear whether it's completely imaginative or whether she did actually come across some sort of spirit. It's very inspired by Japanese cultural spirits and religions and ideas like that, so it definitely has a lot of cultural stuff going on, and I used this for the challenge of a character who was not white, so I really enjoyed reading about this very different culture and from this character's perspective, and I think she got that really well. But for me, this was a bit of a slow read. It felt a little bit trudgy at times. There were times I just wasn't feeling that connected. I really liked the princess character. I found myself less enamoured by the Catwoman character. But overall, it was a decent read. It definitely has the culture. I do really like the way that Kij Johnson writes. She has a very beautiful writing style and very lyrical style, and that comes across really, really well. So I ended up giving this about a 2.5, and I'm happy that it did indeed tick off some of the challenges. The next challenge I had was to read a standalone book, and that one I did with Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this because I have read other Neil Gaiman books of his adult collection and I've just not been that enamoured, but actually this one I really did find enjoyable. It's actually an illustrated edition, this one, you might be able to see, and I wasn't expecting it to be much of an adult tone. I thought maybe it would be a bit YA, but actually this is definitely adult and some of the characters are particularly creepy. It focuses on a world where there is a London below, so everything on the London that we know is kind of inverted and slightly weird and wacky and magical. So you have like Earl's Court, the tube station, is actually an Earl's Court underground where the Earl kind of meets with people and invites them in, and we follow a fairly stereotypical boring man called Richard Mayhew who just doesn't really have a lot going on in his life until someone called Dor, a young girl, turns up in his life and whips him into the London below world, and he is exposed to everything, the magic, he just doesn't know what to do, and he gets completely torn into this adventure. So actually I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Really happy that this readathon pushed me to get round to it a bit quicker than I otherwise might have, and I'm hopeful now that I might actually enjoy some of Neil Gaiman's other books because I did enjoy this one a lot. So if you have recommendations of his that are similar to this, then let me know because I know all of his books are quite different and standalone and things like that. So yeah, tell me which other ones you would recommend because I really like this. And also I listened to some of the audiobook and the audiobook was narrated by him and I thought that was great, so that also helps. And then the last book that I actually finished was this one, Invisible Planets, which is an anthology of contemporary Chinese SF in translation. All of the stories within here, 13 stories, are translated by Ken Liu, and they are variously awarded from different prizes. Many of them were translated and given prizes, and many of the authors are kind of on the current Chinese SF scene, doing really interesting things and just kind of breaking away from the stereotypes and just bringing Chinese SF to a wider platform with the help of translators like Ken Liu. So really, really enjoyed this. Again, it's a collection where there's completely different styles, so there's never going to be everyone that you like, and of course that was the case. I didn't love all of them as much as the others, but there were some I really, really enjoyed, and then there were others where I found I really liked elements, but the story as a whole didn't quite mesh. So I ended up giving this 4 stars as well. But I really enjoyed some of these, and I've written a more cohesive review on Goodreads, which I'll link if you want to know a bit more detail about which ones I liked, because I was updating my status as I went through. But yeah, really happy that I read this. Again, like all of the others, it's one that had been sitting on my shelf for a while, so I'm really happy this gave me an excuse to kind of get to it, and it ticks off the challenge of a story or a book by people who don't speak English as their first language, because it's all translated, so that's great. Now moving on to the books where I've started it but I've not yet finished it. So of course we knew this monster one would probably not get finished, and that is this, The Grey House by Mariam Petrosyan. I did actually get a lot further than I was before. I think I was only 40 pages or so in, and now I'm at page 450 or so. So I got a long way further, but there is still a fair chunk to go because this is about 700 pages. So I've got a decent amount still to read. I think this is just totally weird still. I can't decide if I like it or I don't like it. I think there's elements that I really enjoy, the weird tones, the sort of creepiness, the bizarre elements. Some of the people are really endearing and I like them a lot, but then there's a lot of characters who I just don't care about, and so it's a real mix. And because you jump around perspectives, you get the perspective of the house, you get perspectives of the children who live in the house, you get perspectives of the people who kind of run things, like the teachers. And I think for me, only some of them are working, which is why I'm not loving it as much as I hoped. I still find it interesting and I still am determined to finish it because it is such a chunky read and I've made really good progress with it. And I do want to know what the mystery is, because at the point where I am, we've had some murders and we're not exactly certain why and who's done it. So I'm trying to find out who did it, and yeah, definitely taken some interesting turns since I was last reading it, and I hope to finish this at some point. I'm not going to say soon because I'm sort of plodding my way slowly through it, but I enjoyed what I read of it, and again this one was one that would have counted for the translated fiction because it was translated from Russian. Next up I have this one. This one I'm actually very close to finishing. I'll probably finish this either today or tomorrow because I've only got about 100 pages to go. Yeah, basically 100 pages. This is Traitor's Moon by Lynn Flewelling, and I read this one because it has characters who are in an LGBTQIA relationship, and this character in this book, it's a gay relationship between the two main characters, Sarah Gill and Alec, and I really love this series. I had kind of forgotten how much I love it, but it's very sort of peaceful and fun and charming, and it feels very much like a sword and sorcery. This one in particular, I think someone else commented this on one of my videos actually. I can't remember who it was, but thank you if you did comment this because it was a perfect way to describe it, and that was elf politics. This is the elf politics book in the series because it definitely focuses on these two characters coming back to the world that they left behind, or at least that one of them left behind, and going back as a diplomat to kind of negotiate with his former past and people that he used to know about a world that he now inhabits and the people there who are at war. And it's also about their relationship together and the way that that grows and develops over the course of the books. And I absolutely love them as characters. I think it's a 6 or 7 book series. This is the 3rd, and I definitely plan to finish this up and continue on because right now it's exactly what I'm in the mood for and I've been loving it. So that's great. And then the final book that I have started but not yet finished is this one, The Tiger's Daughter. It's by Kay Arsenault Rivera, and this one is one that I'm really liking as well. It's told in a very different way from what I was expecting. It's mostly told through letters, and kind of letters that are quite long and sprawling and retelling the lives of the characters that we're following. We're following 2 women. We have one who is an empress and one who is kind of like her best friend and the heir to the tribes outside of the throne, and both of them are very powerful in their own right, and we're learning about their relationship right from when they were young children playing together, teasing each other, up to presumably where they are in their lives now. And I haven't got that far into it. I'm about 150 pages, but I'm really enjoying the way that it's kind of unfolding gradually. The world seems really interesting. It's definitely not a Western setting, and a lot of the influence is very cool. So I'm really enjoying it. It's just really interesting. So that is everything I managed to read. Obviously there were a couple on my TBR I didn't get to, but I do think I've ticked off almost all of the challenges. I think the only one that I didn't cover is a book less than 300 pages, which to be honest I'm not too upset about because I'd rather get the longer ones off my TBR anyway. And all of these I think were on my TBR for a while, some of them absolutely ages, so I'm really happy this readathon got me to read them a bit quicker, and I really enjoyed it as well. That is everything I read. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.